All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another channel themed Google Plus Hangout. Today we'll be focusing on a disease that has been termed by the United Nations as a disease which can be seen or termed, just like I said um, earlier, as a disease with anyways, they just say that it looks like something that has a public health emergency of international concern. Well, that is on a global scale. But we're looking at this disease from a local angle, which is a Nigerian angle. We've spotted some cases. Some cases have been reported in Nigeria, Lagos to be precise. 2 people have been confirmed dead, while a couple are presently under watch by officials of Lagos State Ministry of Health as well as the Federal Ministry of Health. But then, what exactly are we looking at? Just before we begin, let me introduce those we have on the hangout. We have Akachukwu Chindi, who is calling from Kestali in Hungary. Akachukwu, thanks for joining the hangout, and good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
All right, and we also have Michael Udo, who is in Nottingham in England. Michael, thanks for coming on this hangout this afternoon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And then we have additional Mutiu Okediron, who is in Mowe, Nigeria. Okediron, I'll start with you because you are at home, so I'll give you the home advantage, just as they say in football parlance.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts exactly? How do we get past where we are? I mean, how do we stop this thing from going past where it is at the moment?
Like I said before we started this program, our government needs to be proactive about this issue. I know federal government declare state of emergency, releasing kind of fund. Is not the first time federal government is doing this kind of stuff, but how do they implement this kind of situation? Because you go to an ordinary hospital and when you look at the money they release every year for this kind of thing, you'll be asking yourself, where do they take this money to? I remember when I had an accident and I was at the general hospital in Igodo, just for them to give me a tetanus injection, they were asking me to go and be refilling card, and I was serious in pain, and they don't want to attend to me on time. And this one that has come, I just hope federal government, I know they've been doing a lot of talkings, but they need to take action and make sure all our hospitals are well equipped to able to. We know that there's no vaccine at the moment, but at least we can take some precautions to curb the spreading of disease in Nigeria at the moment.
All right, additional, I do hope so too, and I do hope that as soon as possible that vaccine is found somewhere, somehow. But then, Akachukwu, I would be coming to you now. Nigeria are trying to partner with the United States, of course, to find a cure. We have something like ZMapp, which we've heard is yet to be scientifically confirmed. What's your take on that, the partnership that is?
Yeah, it's actually a welcome development. If our government will take that step, that's a right step on a right direction. Because this is a disease which has actually come into Africa, which has existed in Africa, and which is also termed as a deadly disease. But before I go into details, I must have to tell you that this Ebola disease, if I may say, what is a regional conspiracy, because this disease, as I can say, was actually imported in Nigeria. Because I believe that party that came to Nigeria came on a suicide mission. I can say that because actually he knows his set of status, and people guided him, and wherever he was coming to Nigeria needs to be investigated. So, but however, we have seen the case that this, as you have rightly said, that 2 people have died and other people are under surveillance. That's also a great step which the government has taken to deal decisively with this disease. Then on the American vaccine, if I may say, it's also a welcome development, but we should also look in area of developing our own, making this drug to ensure that these drugs are always readily available. being at hand before we have some of these diseases. So that is the area the government should have to be looking at, making sure that some of these diseases which we have actually known that have already existed are always on ground before the disease actually gets to us. So for me, the collaboration with United States is also they should continue with it and make sure that we have this drug available to curtail the spread of Ebola.
Okay, let me just hold you to some of the things you said, Akachiko. You know, you said you are very sure, you said this categorically, that you are very sure that Patrick Sawyer came into Nigeria for a mission. But then we were told that he was coming to Nigeria for a summit in Akwa Ibom or so, I think a United Nations or ECOWAS summit.
Yeah. That is what I rightly said. But I say Nigeria government should investigate to actually know if or if he was medically fit to attend that summit. Who certified him? Was there any pre-measure to checkmate to determine his health status before he came to Nigeria?
All right, very well. I'll just move past you now, but then just before I continue, we have a new person coming on the Hangout. He's Olumuyiwa Babatunde Amao. Olumuyiwa, can you hear us? All right, I think he's left the group chat, but then let me just come to you, Michael. Quite a couple has been said by additional. What's your take on this issue?
Anyway, the Ebola thing, it's quite disturbing, first of all, but you know, the issue has been the mortality rate and also accompanied by the lack of a therapeutic measure, a direct therapeutic agent to treat the condition. It gives it a big concern. I wouldn't want to quite annoying, but I think we just have to look beyond that issue at this point because we have to do a lot of things to curtail this, and it's more worrying on the fact that it actually went into Lagos. Lagos has, if not the highest, about second highest population in Nigeria, and it's going into Lagos. It's a time bomb. It's a time bomb if we don't do anything about it. So it gives grave concern, and it's something we definitely have to deal with proactively. We shouldn't play with it with gloves.
Michael, I'll still hold you. You know, talking about dealing with this issue proactively. I mean, we've heard about some steps on how to hold this, but what would you advise?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear. Are you with me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I didn't get the question.
All right, you talked about tackling the issue effectively. So I'm wondering, what would you advise that will help in tackling this disease effectively?
What I'm going to add, it's going to be quite drastic here because some people may say, okay, it's going over the top, but the truth be told, this issue has dealt with in such drastic measure. First of all, we had evidence of one person coming in, which if you want to try to look at the flow chart, from one person, 70% were quarantined. Now it has boiled down to 2 confirmed, I think about 7 confirmed, 2 deaths. That's how fast it can spread. Now there's a rumor that actually a case has been registered in, I think, Abia State or Anambra, unconfirmed. We're also told that accomplice of Patrick went to Calabar for the conference. So that exclusion. Now, if we want to handle this thing critically, we have to face it head on. Like someone said somewhere, the first thing we should do is, anyway, if we want to talk about the provision of the protective equipment and all of that, it's quite unfortunate because of recent, after about 2 to 2 weeks after the Patrick's entry into Nigeria, we're just hearing the president approving funds to GAM acquire PPE, something that prior to Patrick's entry, the Ministry of Health was telling us that Nigeria is ready to contain it. Now, it was baffling and annoying because they still deal with all these crises they deal as it, like the way they have been dealing with Boko Haram, unfortunately. But that is another issue. One thing we should do right now, first of all, is to contain this. Now, to contain it actually involves first, what do we do? All these people that have actually had first or second person contact with confirmed cases have to be tracked down. That is the basic thing. We do not have any drug. It does not need special technology to do that. Yeah, it is a lot of work. But if we can track down to the very last person that has ever had contact with any of these confirmed cases, it is going to help us a lot to avoid the spread. Now, another thing we should try to discourage at this point is large gatherings. Now, there are a lot of gatherings going on. People have questioned the rationale behind the NYC current gathering, the church gatherings, and all of that. People have questioned it. Yes, it is something that ends that right. We have to question it. We have to control it and discourage such large gatherings. Not that we don't want people to go about the activities. Not that we don't want people to pray, but we should also realize the public health risk. It just takes one person to say, okay, I want to go for a miracle somewhere. He's honestly going for a miracle, but before he gets healed, he possibly must have infected another 10 person on his way to meet the pastor for prayers. That is the kind of situation we have to deal. We have to be able to curtail. Thank you.
All right, Michael. So talking about avoiding crowded places. Just before I get to that, we have a caller, additional, who is actually at Moe. That's the redemption camp where actually a lot of people were at yesterday to pray for the nation, to seek miracles and all that. But just before I come to you to respond on that, additional, I would like to welcome a new caller on the Hangout, Olumuyiwa Babatunde Amao. Thank you for joining the Hangout this afternoon.
Hi everyone. It's wonderful being here.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful to have you too, Babatunde. All right. So I would come to you now, additional. How would you react to this issue about avoiding crowded places, because you're presently at a crowded place? What's your take on that?
When the Ebola case was, can you hear me? Okay. When the Ebola crisis was reported, the General Pastor during the Church of God as a person of Pastor Adeboye specifically told those people that in the country, that the Western African country, that they should not bother to come to the convention. So we did not have anybody from Sierra Leone, from Liberia, from Guinea for this convention. So what is just told them that there are going to be a proper convention for them at their own zone when this crisis has gone down. And part of the thing that he made sure that people that came to camp do was to make sure they maintain personal hygiene. Even though every evening you have to be calling each province, each region, this is the most neatest, though you people can try, you make sure that even though when you go to different hostel, they make sure that they maintain the environment very clean, because dirty environments too, even though it's not Ebola, we know that this is that if we don't clean the environment, disease can come at any time, cholera and other stuff. But make sure that all the old stuff about personal hygiene are very, very paramount at this moment at the convention. None of the people from those epidemic countries are here at the moment. We specifically told them not to bother to come, so we will not be able to. So I will not be in a stage that we were escalating the thing again, because we already have at our hand. So we have people from that hand. We don't know whether they're having it, and some people maybe believe, okay, we will get to camp, I'll get healing. But now you just told them, just stay back home, and we'll continue to pray with you.
All right. So, well, I hope the prayers reach those people who are far back in their homes in other parts of Africa where this outbreak has been reported. But then, Olumuyiwa, I'll be coming to you soon, but just before I do that, let me welcome someone else. Femi Ijebuode, thank you for joining the Hangout this afternoon. We can't hear you, Femi. No, we still can't hear you. All right, very well then. All right. So, Olumuyiwa, just coming to you now. If you look at this issue, has been regarded by the WHO as a public health emergency of international concern. Nigerian government has requested to use the new drug that has been, even though not yet scientifically confirmed by the United States, ZMapp. We're actually now looking at screening passengers who coming and go out of Nigeria. And of course, there's an emergency meeting being held by the WHO. What is your take? How do you see this playing out in terms of it being reported in Lagos, Nigeria?
Well, let me say that the Ebola insurgency, so to speak, in Nigeria is something we couldn't have, avoided. Nigeria being a very friendly nation, Nigeria is perhaps one of the very few countries in the whole world that allows every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come into its country without checks. You don't get such laxity all around in other countries of the world. Issues that has to do with security, border patrol, border control are a very integral part of national security. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, that's not the norm. We tend to thrive under this assumption that we are big brothers to other African countries and we shouldn't close our borders. Even before Ebola came, a whole lot of things happened in Nigeria's borders. Some people have argued that the reason why Boko Haram is so predominant in the northern part of the country is because those borders are so porous. And it's not just about the north, it's about everywhere. So for us as a country, it wasn't something we could have avoided. But that said, unfortunately, again, Nigeria doesn't have a very good maintenance culture. Again, we don't have that kind of health safety regulations that you would expect of a giant, so to speak, as Nigeria. So all these factors combined gives me serious cause for concern. If care is not taken, this may be a very serious pandemic that may even be greater than Boko Haram. But that said, I do hope that the government will continue to build on what they've done. I hope that somebody somewhere would support the Lagos State government initiative. I think above all the other states that we've seen, Lagos State has been quite proactive. I want to commend them for perhaps making attempts to curtail these excesses and the serious chase that has been going on in terms of trying to locate all those who had direct contact with Patrick Sawyer. In the end, it will all boil down to our readiness as a nation and our readiness as individual states to contain the virus in our different enclaves. And more importantly, it will boil down to personal hygiene. Unfortunately, again, Nigeria as a country wouldn't be able to get whatever drugs they think they would get from the US because US, whatever the cases, would never release ZMapp. I mean, ZMapp is an experimental project. It's not even done. Even if it's been certified as effective, the US would prefer to have some monopoly over it. So we must just forget about that and concentrate on how we can contain the virus within our fold. And I'm still surprised. I'm perplexed, actually, that the Minister of Health is still claiming that we're not going to close our borders. That's invitation to chaos, if you ask me. I don't know what plans they have. I hope they have better plans. I hope they're able to sort those things out. And I also hope that in the end, the ordinary man on the street who hasn't been able to eat this quail meat will not be the victim of this madness, in quotes. All those factors combined gives the ordinary man on the street serious cause for concern. And I think the government should really be more proactive. And I want to see the federal government supporting the state government. I want to see more personnel being deployed. I want to see more health safety regulations being put in place in our airports, in our seaports, and in all those borders they can man. If you're able to combine all those factors, let's hope that the calamity won't be much more than what the government can control. And let's also hope that we can actually accommodate the catastrophe that would happen if we are not able to locate those who had direct contact with Patrick Sawyer, but who have been on their heels now. That again tells you that we have a problem with our information system. We don't have any informatic base in Nigeria. Nobody knows anything about any citizen. So tracking ordinary citizens that have had contact with Patrick Sawyer is becoming a problem. And those ones are much more dangerous than the ones that the government has been able to isolate. So you have to marry all these factors combined, and again, in the Nigerian spirit, continue to hope and pray that God saves us. That, for me, appears to be the last hope for an average Nigerian. So we cannot do anything about it. We must continue to support the efforts that have been put in place. I know that this government at the center will be proactive at least for once.
All right, Olumuyiwa, we hope that they are proactive as well. But we have Femi Jabudi. Femi just was on first, but he had to go off, and now he's back. Femi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining again.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Femi. I guess you've been able to fix your audio. So, well, just going straight to the issue. Of course, you've seen the introduction of this Hangout before clicking on the link from any of the platforms that you used to join. We've had other people on the Hangout who have made comments about this issue. But let's even put all that aside. I'll come to you on the fact that right now the Nigerian Medical Association is on strike. How do you see that panning out? I mean, in terms of now trying to control the spread of this disease.
Well, the fact that the doctors are on strike at such a critical period actually points out very clearly the type of situation that we are in as a country. The fact that on the one hand we have this outbreak of Ebola, and on the other hand we have our doctors who are supposed to be protecting us against this threat on strike. They have actually downed tools and said that they aren't providing services to Nigerians at such a critical time. What this makes obvious to me, at least, is the fact that Nigeria is in a very dire situation, is in a very hopeless position, actually, when you think about it. All of this points to the collapse of Nigeria as a nation. You can see the evidence right before you. On the one hand, we have Ebola. On the other hand, we have Boko Haram in the north. On the other hand, we have our doctors on strike. The economy is in complete shambles. There's no employment for millions of young people. We have Ebola now on the scene, ravaging the nation. Or, well, representing a threat that could ravage the nation, kill millions of people. This is our situation. And the critical thing about this scenario that I have just painted is the fact that Nigeria as a nation seems helpless. We seem totally unable to deal with any of these threats to our existence. We have to look to outsiders. This is our condition. So that's my take on it. I think the outbreak of Ebola in Nigeria and the threat it represents is actually an excellent opportunity for Nigerians to take stock and reflect on our condition right now, on where we are and how we came to be in this condition. Every significant event in a person's life is an opportunity for that person, for that individual, to reflect on his life, on the trajectory, on the course of his life that has brought him to that event. Likewise, it is the same in the history of a nation, in the development of a nation. We must do the same now. First, we had Boko Haram. We didn't do enough reflection. Now we have Ebola on the scene, threatening the lives and the existence of our people. It's yet another opportunity for Nigerians to take stock. That's my take on it, my good friend.
All right, very well. I hope we do reflect and do also put things into perspective to make sure that things like this do not occur. But then, in continuing, I have Mr. Abraham Awobem. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Hangout. We can't hear you, Abraham. We still can't hear you. I think you need to work on your audio. And I'll come back to you. All right, guys. Additional, I was going to come back to you. Femi and Maiwa and Muyiwa, I beg your pardon, have raised some salient issues pertaining, the responses or what is on ground before Ebola even came on board. What's your take on that? How do you see this helping in trying to douse this issue?
Like I said before, is our government needs to be serious about things. It's not only this about Ebola that we're talking about. There are so many other things that's happening that they need to take serious, because everything that happened in Nigeria they are taking as a personal or political stuff, like a political fight. Is PDP, is APC, is AIP, they're taking it. If we go to other countries of this world, even though they have the different political background, they still work together for the betterment of their country. You cannot tell me something is happening in America and a Republican or a Democrat will just ignore it because it's another party that is there. All of them will work together as one. We need to work together with our government, and government too needs to be serious about what they are doing, and they should be transparent as much as they can. Because Nigeria, we tend to have issue with the trust with the government. Government is doing something like I said when they released, they say President Jonathan have already released 1 point something billion naira for this Ebola crisis. I like we just want to know how they want to use the money, because in the next few days or few months to come, you'll be hearing a story that the money have been used by so person for, and next year is election again. We don't know whether the money is actually provided for election purposes, and they need to be transparent and work with other state governments. It's not only Lagos that should be doing all this. Other state governments should be very, very proactive as well, especially in the north as well, because we have issue with the Boko Haram issue, and for us to curb this one, there are some other people that come through the border. Even though you go to Benagri border here, you marvel so many routes that people take to enter Nigeria, and you be asking yourself whether our governments are very serious about this. But when you get to like Agbara side, you now see custom. That is the time they are now trying to check whether you bring in rice or you bring in something. They are not even at the core place they're supposed to able to curb these people that will just come in anyhow. And we as individuals need to maintain personal hygiene as well, because you especially Lagos, you stay in an environment and people don't want to, they are waiting for somebody to clean the gutter, they are waiting for somebody to clean the bush. So we need to work as a team. Not this battle is not one person battle, is the whole world battle. And America or anybody that developing the vaccine for this Ebola, we need to be fast as many as we can, so that we're able to curb this thing and nip this thing in the bud. Thank you.
All right. If you can, thank you for your contribution there. But if you can just kindly ask the people around you to, just pipe down a bit while you are making your contributions, it will really help the production of this hangout.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I understand a lot is going on down there, and there's a lot of excitement by people after the convention yesterday night. But then, Abraham, thank you for joining again. I was trying to get you earlier, but I couldn't hear you properly. Good afternoon. Okay, I think we're still having the same problem. No, I still can't hear you, sir. All right, so you can. I'll guide you through the chat box on how you can set this up. That's clear your audio issue up. But then I can see that also that some people are watching via YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can send your comments using the hashtag Ebola outbreak, and we'll see them and read them to the people on the chat. And also for those of you on the chat box too, if someone is making a comment that it doesn't go down well with you, or you have something to add to it, you can just write that in the chat box, and I'll, of course, the person will see it, and then he will also respond to that conversation or that comment you make. Abraham, can you just speak now? Let's see if we're going to hear you one more time before we move. All right, so we still can't hear you. I'll come back to you then. Akachiko, you've been here and you've been quiet for a while.
Yeah.
I know you. Exactly. I can see the enthusiasm with which you're answering. But then, quite a couple of issues have been raised as well. But I'd like to come back to you on the issue of our borders, or in fact, in any way that people can come into Nigeria. Because if you look at it now, people can come in through, they can come in by air, they can come in through the sea, they can come in through borders as well. Yeah, we know that they are screening people before leaving or coming into Nigeria at the airports, but what about the other places? What's your take? What exactly do you think about this issue?
About border infiltration?
Exactly.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who are definitely in charge of these borders. And I believe that government has various institutions that take charge of all these border issues. So, but let me rightly say, coming from the issue of NMA being on strike is, if I may say, it's a mockery of the whole situation. Government has responded to this Ebola by giving out money. Who are the people who are managing this money? Who are the experts who are giving their expert advice to contain these diseases? Since the medical doctors, as we rightly know, are the custodians of our medical system. So that is also a question that we need to answer and address before we come into addressing the issue of Ebola properly. And as you also rightly said, our borders, because I can remember as I was leaving the country, there is always this call that whenever you travel, that you need your yellow paper to certify you that you are certified medically fit for you to step out of our country. Are those laws also enforced in Nigeria? Do we normally see people's health status to satisfy them fit for before they board from different countries before they come to Nigeria? These are also some issues. Are medical personnel or some laws or some agencies who tackles this in, are they functioning? These are some of the basic things we have to do at this time to ensure that whoever that passes through our border are satisfied medically fit before you enter.
All right. Thank you there. But Michael, I'll come to you now. It seems you're triplets, because I can see Michael Udo, Michael Udo, Michael Udo. So I'm beginning to wonder.
I think it's network that's just trying to. Yeah.
Okay. So which one should I use? All right. I think
Anyone, just go ahead. I can hear you.
Oh, but that means your audio will be bouncing.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, don't worry. I'll pick one that I would that I can use.
Okay.
Yeah. So just all right. Can you talk now?
Was that me?
All right, Abraham. I can now hear you. I'll come back to you. Let me just take some comments from Michael, but I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right, Michael, go ahead. All right, can you come again?
I didn't get your question.
All right, okay, we're just looking at the issue about, first we're looking at the porous borders and also looking at the strike embarked upon, or the ongoing strike by Nigerian medical doctors. How do you see that playing at this critical time?
Yeah, definitely those issues are critical at this point, but I would like to start from the strike. Unfortunately, anyway, the justification or criticism of the NMA strike is a different subject matter, but I don't think they actually intended it to coincide with the Ebola pandemic, so to speak. But at this point, should they come back to work? Is it appropriate for us to try to play on their humanitarian side to come back to work to respond to the Ebola strike? I would say it would not be fair to try to push them back to the hospitals without appropriate measures, because it will only be counterproductive in the long term. Now, Ebola virus as it isn't just another disease that can easily be managed by just mental intelligence or clinical skills. It needs physical protective equipment. Do we have these things available? If we have this, you know that anyway, it may be from are on strike. Patients to an extent are restricted from the hospital. In the perspective of Ebola, if we see it as I would see it, it has helped to more or less restrain the spread of Ebola, as in to the medical personnel. But if we look at this thing now, right now, we don't have protective equipment readily available for response across the hospitals. If the NMA comes back on strike, there is a surge into the hospital. They don't have the capacity to contain it, it becomes counterproductive. The thing that if we are trying, we know that definitely anyway. Someone was asking a question: who is managing the funds and everything currently being released by the federal government? To the best of my knowledge, it is still doctors, but they have this this arrangement that has been made. The doctors attending to isolated cases, their payment, they are quite different from the NMA. Some of them are coming out of the strike to render their services. You know, it's a different arrangement, which is quite not as responsive as NMA would have, but it's still doctors that are responding to those cases. But I think that if we are trying to compel them to come back to work, let us deal with the issue face on, the issues they've raised on. But although the justification of those issues, like I say, is a case for another day, because anyway, that is that. But on this case, let us be able to provide a safe environment for them to work in before we try to compel them to come back to work. That will be justified. That's when we'll be able to say, okay, doctors have refused to, as we quote it, honor their Hippocratic oath in a situation where there's a conducive environment for them to actually work. If we provide that first, then it will be safe to try to compel them. On the issue of the porous border, it's unfortunate because we've actually allowed this to haunt us in several ways. One of such was Boko Haram, and now we have the issue of Ebola. The truth be told, I don't know how at the semi-blank border, except at the airport. I think that's where it's like, how do I put it? It's better managed or so. I wouldn't know how it's done on land here, but I'm afraid that our porous border is still going to haunt us a lot on this issue, because we have people who have gone out to those countries for genuine businesses. They are Nigerians. They have the right to come back to their country. If they have actually contracted these diseases, it may not actually show at a point until 3 weeks later, and the 3 weeks later may actually come out when they are back to Nigeria. Even if they have these diseases, fine, okay, you are able to monitor their their temperature, to be able to restrict them at the border. But what happens to those who have actually contracted this virus and they're not yet showing up the symptoms? So basically, it's a disturbing scenario, but we also have to prepare our ground. We have to tidy up our house proactively to be able to curtail the virus. That's my submission.
All right, thank you there, Michael Udo, who at first we actually thought we had a triplets on the hangout, but apparently it was one person joining in 3 places. Now, Iram, I'll come to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon. We're now actually looking to the United States for a cure to Ebola.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Of course I am.
All right, great. So, all right, it was just a question. But if you look at the fact, I mean, we have a couple of research centers in this country. Ebola has been spotted since 1976 in Africa. How would you rate the performances of our research institutes, so to speak, now back at home? And do you think they have the capacity to come up with a cure for this disease?
Yes, thank you very much. Victor, yeah?
Yes, please.
If you don't mind me calling you Victor, is that all right, please? Yeah?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay. Well, you know, where does one start from? It's, you know, the whole saga grieves my heart beyond what words can express. Not the least because I work in the health sector myself. It's, you know, I don't know. I'm just shaking my head now because I'm almost at a loss for words. But because this is a forum, I must find some words to express how I feel. So I'm going to try my best. I may not bring it out perfectly. It is, to put it very politely, shall we say, a whole lot. It leaves a whole lot to be desired. You know, I read, right or wrong, that the government is pleading with the U.S. government for some of the magic serum to treat our victims back in Nigeria. And it begs the question, what have we been doing? It's always the same story over and over again. And each time we're going cap in hand, begging people to come and save us. And then we sooner turn around again to blame the same people for our ills. You know, I don't know where to start from. We have a brilliant research institute in Von Plateau State that I know about. It's been there for years. What are they doing? You're right. Ebola was reported in Africa in 1976 in Zaire, the Democratic Republic of Congo. In that same 1976, efforts to develop a vaccine began in the United Kingdom. If you look at the case report of infected persons, actually, the first reported case of infection in England was in 1976, and that happened accidentally in a lab when they were trying to analyze this virus to prepare against it. That's 1976. I was only a little boy then. Perhaps you weren't even born, if you'll excuse me. What have we been doing? Now, to get serum, it's science, thankfully science has advanced so much and has become easier over time. It's not so difficult to slice a little piece of the DNA from the Ebola virus and insert it into a suitable vector and produce a vaccine. It's not rocket science anymore. It was 20 years ago. It's not anymore now. But you need the political will. You need people who are genuinely serious, who take the interest of their people to heart. You need planners, and you need planners who will be allowed to plan. And these are things that are lacking on ground. The so-called serum were going cap in hand, begging the US. It's even been produced in a private lab for crying out loud. It's not even a government thing. And they're just taking a piece of the Ebola, slice it genetically, insert it in a particular species of tobacco, and they're mass growing it already. So it's sad that, we don't learn. They say those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Unfortunately, the typical African story is that we don't learn. I'm fairly optimistic this saga is going to pass, but everybody's just going to go back into the cooler and carry on with their lives like nothing happened until the next outbreak. I don't know how we will help ourselves from that attitude, but I hope we would. Thank you.
Well, I hope we do so, and I hope that we don't have another outbreak or next outbreak.
There will be, Victor. It's not a matter of wishing you ill, like people would say. If you look at the epidemiological pattern of diseases, these outbreaks occur cyclically. There is a carrier vector somewhere out there. They're speculating it could be a particular species of bats, but there is a reservoir there. It's a zoonosis, meaning a disease that jumps from animals to human beings. So the vector is out there. You're not eliminating the vector. That means, therefore, that from time to time, you're going to have periodic outbreaks. That's not wishing you bad luck. That's not being negative. It's just fact. What you then need to do, the Yoruba people, if you permit me to say that a foretold war does not kill a cripple. That's a cripple that's wise. If we know that this thing occurs cyclically and that it's going to come around again, I think we do well to prepare rather than bury our heads in the sand and say, oh no, it's not going to happen. Oh, God's not going to let it happen to me or something like that.
All right. Thanks, Abraham or you just raised some issues, and I noticed that while you were talking, some people actually were nodding their heads either in concurrence or in deference. But I would go to Olumuyiwa first. Olumuyiwa, I reckon you have something to speak just about Abraham's comments moments ago.
Yes, Abraham is puts everything in the right perspective. What he's just said in summary is that Nigeria, we lack basic foresight to arrest situations before they actually occur. But I would add from a much more systemic point of view, I like talking about the system. Again, we don't have a system working in Nigeria. And in situations where there are no systems, you cannot expect magic. What we have in Nigeria is a facade. Nobody seems to care. Nobody sees that project, that country, as his property. And so whatever happens doesn't affect them. What people are more concerned about, if I may add, is that they want to know how much naira and kobo can drop into their pockets out of this 1 point something billion naira that the presidency has released. And it's so unfortunate, and it will be so shocking for you to realize that most of these monies out of the 1.4 billion that the presidency has released, most of it will actually go into private hands. None of this money at all will go into research. of further research. We made mention of the Research Institute in Jos. You probably need to take a visit to that institute now. It's all overgrown with weeds. The Center for Disease Control in Abuja itself doesn't have any framework to contain a virus as easy or as simple as Ebola. So it tells you about the quality of country we have as an entity and the kind of systemic problem that we got. And not until we fix those things, all of our universities, Nigeria probably has one of the highest numbers of universities in Africa. In all our universities, out of all the professors that we got, out of all the professors of biotechnology, biochemistry, epidemiology, everything that has to do with diseases, none of them has been encouraged to further into this research work. The last or the latest or the most recent was EWU's research that talked about cola in 1999. In 2014, we're talking about the research that was done in 1999. Events have overgrown that. These things aren't difficult to contain, but we won't be able to arrest it in Nigeria because Nigerians are not just simply being encouraged by their government. And what we cater about are things that shouldn't really concern us. And it's a big shame. And again, you narrow this argument down to the leadership. When you have a leadership that is not focused, when you have a leadership that whose priority is all set at something entirely different, you're going to continue to have this problem in that kind of a country. And until we get our leadership right, across board, it's not about the presidency alone. The Ministry of Health, all important parastatals, the presidency, the governors, the local government chairman, all of them must be in sync with this right ideology that would make Nigeria the country that it should be. We need to develop all these things on our own. I'm confident we can do it. I'm certain that in all those herbs that we have in Africa, there is a cure to the Ebola virus there. But we wouldn't be able to do it because nobody's going to fund it. But if it was politics, you see so much billions of naira getting missing. If it was 2015 elections, people were willing to donate. And again, I don't know what to say at this point, other than for us to hope that the citizens will use their votes to vote wisely and get the right people in positions of authority. If we don't do that, it's going to be a cycle that will keep coming around over and over again, and that will be terrible. It really will be terrible. I pray we overcome this, but more importantly, I pray that we do something to make sure that the next outbreak is contained more quickly.
All right, you're also talking about the next outbreak, just like Abraham did. But then I also join you in prayers, and I hope others on this hangout do also join you in prayers to make sure that this thing is contained as well as the next. But then, Femi Jabode, you were also nodding your head. I know you have things to say, so why don't I just get them before I welcome a new caller on the hangout, who is Benjamin Cosmos. But I'll come to Benjamin. Let me just come to you first.
Yes, unfortunately, this whole question of prayers is very unhelpful and very damaging to us as Nigerians. When you and my brother talked about prayers and praying that this outbreak wouldn't kill Nigerians, as far as I'm concerned, that's just a fallen hope that you've just expressed. And it's not just a hope; it also expresses how hopeless and how helpless Nigerians are. Yeah, it's someone who is helpless who has to look to some mystery God to come and solve his problems. Yeah. And again, to speak to what my brother was saying about leadership being the issue, no, I will disagree. It isn't just leadership; it's people like you and I. All of us. Yeah, our leaders don't come from outer space. They're Nigerians like you and I. The corruption that we speak about is endemic in Nigerian society. The stupidity and the ignorance is pervasive in Nigerian society. That's you and I. So I think we really need to stop this business of pointing to leaders here and leaders there. To come back to what the other brother said, yes, we Nigerians have a culture of always looking to the white man to solve our problems. We go begging, like beggars. We beg for aid, we beg for help with Boko Haram, we beg for help with Ebola. And as I say, all of these instances, all of these issues, our helplessness, our dependence, all of these things are opportunities for you and I to sit down and look at ourselves. Whether we are Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, it doesn't matter. What is our condition as a Nigerian? all of us are suffering as Nigerians. It doesn't matter whether you're from Djibouti or from Kano or Kaduna or Abakaliki. No, 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 no. You are living like an animal in 2014. That is our reality. And apart from the miserable living conditions that we deal with, we now have to contend with threats to our very existence in the form of Boko Haram and number two, Ebola. And meanwhile, we have AIDS in the background, killing Nigerians exponentially, millions. So, as I say, these are all calls, clarion calls, very loud calls to Nigerians, 170 million of us, to pay attention to what is going on to our lives. Stop all this God, excuse my language, God bullshit. Okay, we need to stop all that and face facts, face our reality. Stop all this head in the clouds rubbish. Stop pointing to leaders. No, it's not about leaders. It's me. It's you, Victor. It's everybody on this hangout. It's the millions of Nigerians all over the world where all of us are posing. Everyone wants to do big man. Everyone wants to be hip. Everyone wants to speak big English. But we're not looking at the reality of our condition. And as I say, this is an opportunity. This outbreak is a perfect opportunity for us to do that. Thank you.
All right, Femi, you're also raising your own concerns pertaining this issue and pertaining some other things. But then I'll just, this issue of HIV also has just been put to the back burner. But that doesn't still mean that it's not in place. And of course, we also go to the white man to seek his help. Femi, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, but even at that, some people, prayer is just part and parcel of us. Let me just put it that way. And prayers will work. If not now, maybe later. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with that?
Who, me?
Yes, please.
No, I don't. I don't. Because
Why?
why? Because as a child, my mother used to tell me that heaven helps those who help themselves. Yes? And Nigerians are not helping themselves. Uh, if we were truly helping ourselves, we will look at our condition, at our situation, as I say, and we will draw the necessary conclusions. Right now, you have mentioned that there's an antidote, there's a cure for this Ebola. It's called Zima. Okay. Now the hello, hello.
Hello?
Hello?
Mm.
It seems Victor is off.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think so.
Maybe because network.
Or maybe the time is up. His time is up, or what?
No, I'm not sure. Maybe the network.
Who's going to coordinate now?
I don't think the time is up. Let's hope that their station didn't get attacked by Abubakar Shekau. or Ebola.
Oh, maybe.
Or
Yeah,
Ebola. And everybody is busy looking for a glove or a mask.
Yes.
Again, you'll be surprised when it comes online. It might tell you that they have problems with electricity, and then somehow they ran out of supply.
God have mercy on Nigeria.
Anything
God
that
have
happens
mercy on
happens.
us.
maybe somebody with a suspected Ebola came into the compound and everybody.
Yeah, and everybody had to run for his dear life. A whole lot of miracle happens in that country.
Nigeria is under seizure. It's under seizure. Boko Haram in the northeast, Ebola through the southwest.
You see, the irony of it all is that, unfortunately, they are still going to return the same set of leaders next year, and that makes the whole case interesting. The same set of people that are making life unbearable for Nigerians are the same set of people that will return under the altar of religion and then where you come from and where you don't come from, and not under the altar of merit.